Millionaire sees his wife humiliating the maid. But what he did next, no one could have imagined. Michael Anderson was about to enter the living room when he heard his wife's shrill voice echoing through the hallway. He stopped at the slightly open door, unseen, and witnessed a scene he would never forget. "You're incompetent," shouted Catherine, pointing an accusing finger at Amy, the young maid who had worked in their mansion for just 3 months. "Look what you did to my crystal vase." The girl, just 22 years old, was kneeling on the marble floor, trying to gather the pieces of a vase that had broken. Her hands trembled as she collected the fragments, and Michael could see tears streaming down her face. "It was an accident, Mrs. Catherine. I was just cleaning and—" began Amy, her voice choked. "An accident?" interrupted Catherine with a cruel laugh. "This vase cost more than you make in 6 months. You'll pay for this, you can be sure of that." Michael felt his stomach turn. He knew that vase. He had bought it at some store for $200, but his wife always exaggerated the prices of things to impress visitors. Seeing Amy humiliate herself over something so insignificant deeply disturbed him. "Get up from there," ordered Catherine, giving the shards a light kick. "Now you're going to clean this entire floor again, and I want it shining like a mirror, do you hear me?" "Yes, ma'am," murmured Amy, getting up with difficulty. "And another thing," continued Catherine, with a malicious smile on her lips. "Your salary this month will be cut in half. Maybe then you'll learn to be more careful with other people's things." Michael saw despair take over Amy's face. The girl opened her mouth as if to protest, but held back. She just lowered her head and whispered an almost inaudible, "Yes, ma'am." "And don't think that's all," added Catherine, clearly satisfied with the suffering she was causing. "You'll also work through the weekend without a day off. Maybe then you won't break anything else." At that moment, Michael felt something burn in his chest, a mix of anger and shame he had never experienced before. How had he allowed his home to become a place where a young working girl was treated this way? Catherine turned to leave the room and came face to face with her husband standing at the door. For a brief moment, she seemed embarrassed, but quickly regained her composure. "Oh, Michael, you're home early today," she said as if nothing had happened. "I was just explaining to our employee here how things work in this house." Michael looked at Amy, who had lowered her head even further and pretended to be busy gathering the last pieces. He could see she was dying of shame that he had witnessed that humiliation. "I see," was all he could say at that moment. Catherine approached him and gave him a kiss on the cheek, as she always did when he came home from work. But this time, Michael felt as if he were being kissed by a stranger. "I'm going to take a shower," she announced. "Tell me about your day later." When Catherine left the room, Michael was alone with Amy. The young woman kept her head down, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Amy," he called softly. "Yes, Mr. Michael," she replied, without raising her eyes. "Are you all right?" The question seemed to catch Amy off guard. She slowly lifted her face, revealing eyes red from crying. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry about the vase. I'll pay for it, don't worry." Michael felt his heart tighten. The girl was willing to pay for something that probably cost less than she made in a week. "Don't worry about the vase," he said, trying to sound casual. "Accidents happen." Amy seemed surprised by the kindness, but soon lowered her head again. "Mrs. Catherine said that—" "I'll talk to her," Michael interrupted. "You don't need to worry about the pay deduction." For a moment, Amy's eyes shone with hope, but soon suspicion took over her expression. "Thank you, Mr. Michael, but I don't want to cause problems between you because of me." "You're not causing any problems," he assured her. "Now finish what you were doing and you can go rest." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. That night during dinner, Michael could barely eat. The scene he had witnessed kept playing in his mind like a movie he couldn't turn off. Catherine chatted about her day at the beauty salon, completely unaware of the whirlwind of emotions going through her husband's head. "And Sarah was telling me that her housekeeper broke an antique mirror that cost a fortune," Catherine said, cutting her filet mignon with exaggerated delicacy. "She deducted the full amount from the girl's salary. It wasn't enough, in my opinion." Michael put down his fork and stared at his wife. "Don't you think that's a bit extreme?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Extreme?" Catherine stopped eating and looked at him with surprise. Michael, these people need to learn they have responsibilities. If we don't hold them accountable, they'll think they can do anything. But accidents happen, Catherine. Everyone breaks something now and then. When was the last time you broke something? She retorted with an ironic smile. Or me. We know how to take care of our things because they have value to us. To them, it means nothing. You're generalizing, said Michael, feeling his irritation grow. Amy is a hard-working and careful girl. Amy? Catherine raised her eyebrows. Since when do you call her by her first name? And how do you know she's careful if you barely speak to her? Michael realized he had given himself away. Catherine was clever and wouldn't let that slide. I just observe, he stammered, and she seems like a good employee to me. Observe? Catherine set down her silverware and leaned forward. Michael, are you defending a housekeeper against your own wife? I'm not defending anyone. I just think everyone deserves to be treated with respect. Respect? Catherine's voice began to rise. You want to talk about respect? Then let's talk about the respect your employee should have for our things. She's not my employee, Catherine, and you know very well it was an accident. How can you be so sure? Were you there? Michael swallowed hard. He couldn't say he had seen the whole scene without admitting he had been spying. I don't need to be there to know the girl didn't break the vase on purpose. Catherine abruptly rose from the table, making the dishes rattle. I can't believe what I'm hearing, she exclaimed. My own husband taking the side of a stranger against me. It's not about taking sides, Catherine. It's about fairness. Fairness? She gave a bitter laugh. Fairness is her paying for what she broke. If I don't set boundaries, she'll end up breaking half the house and you'll still think it's fine. Michael stood up too, feeling the argument was getting out of control. You're exaggerating, as always. Always? Catherine's eyes glinted dangerously. So you think I always exaggerate? That's not what I meant. Yes, it was, she interrupted. And you know what, Michael? If you keep questioning how I run this house, I'll fire all the staff and we'll have to manage on our own. Let's see if you keep being so protective then. You can't fire everyone because of our argument. Yes, I can, shouted Catherine. This is my house and I'll do whatever I want here. Our house, corrected Michael firmly. Our house, but I'm the one who takes care of it while you're working all day. Catherine was almost purple with anger. I'm the one who deals with these employees. I'm the one who solves the problems. I'm the one who keeps everything running. Michael took a deep breath, trying to calm down. He had known Catherine for 15 years and knew that when she got like that, it was better to back off. You're right, he said reluctantly. I'm sorry for questioning you. Catherine studied him for a moment, as if trying to determine if he was being sincere. Good, she said finally, sitting back down. Let's not have this happen again. But as they finished dinner in silence, Michael couldn't stop thinking about Amy. The girl was probably in her room at the back of the house, worried about the pay cut and the possibility of losing her job. He needed to find a way to help her without creating more problems. The next day, Michael woke up earlier than usual. Catherine was still asleep when he went downstairs for coffee. He found Amy in the kitchen, already preparing breakfast. Her eyes were swollen, as if she had been crying during the night. Good morning, Amy, he greeted her softly. Good morning, Mr. Michael, she replied, not looking up from the toast she was preparing. Did you sleep well? The question seemed to surprise her. She stopped what she was doing and looked at him quickly before lowering her eyes again. Yes, sir. Thank you for asking. Michael could see she was lying, but he didn't want to embarrass her further. Amy, about yesterday, he began. Please, Mr. Michael, she interrupted quickly. I don't want to cause any more trouble. I accept the pay cut and working on weekends. I just need this job. The desperate way she said it made Michael realize there was more to the situation. Do you have family, Amy? She hesitated for a moment before answering. I have my mother, sir. Does she live here in New York City? Yes, she does, in a boarding house in the Bronx. Michael knew the area. It was an outer borough where living conditions were quite difficult. Is it just the two of you? Amy nodded, clearly uncomfortable with the questioning. Does your mother work? She's sick, murmured Amy, and Michael saw her eyes fill with tears. She hasn't been able to work for a few months. Suddenly everything made sense. The girl was supporting the household alone, and any reduction in her pay would be devastating for them. What kind of illness does she have? A heart problem, sir. She needs expensive medicine and... Amy stopped talking and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Michael. I shouldn't be talking about these things. Of course you can talk, he assured her. We're almost family here, Amy gave a sad smile. Mrs. Catherine doesn't think so. What do you mean by that? Nothing, sir, forget I said anything. But Michael couldn't forget. It was becoming increasingly clear that things were happening in his house that he had no idea about. Amy, can I ask you a question? Of course, sir. Does she always treat you this way? Amy became visibly tense and began nervously fiddling with the dish towel. I don't understand what you mean. Yesterday wasn't the first time she yelled at you, was it? Mr. Michael, please. Amy looked around as if afraid Catherine might appear at any moment. I don't want to speak ill of your wife. You wouldn't be speaking ill, just helping me understand the situation. Amy remained silent for a long moment. Michael could see she was fighting an internal battle between the fear of losing her job and the need to get things off her chest. She gets angry over the littlest things, she finally said, almost whispering. If I leave a glass not quite clean, if I put something out of place, if I take longer than she thinks I should to do something, there's always something wrong. And what does she do when she gets angry? She yells, she deducts from my pay, she makes me redo the work over and over. Once she made me clean the same bathroom 6 times because she said it still smelled like cleaning product. Michael felt his blood boil. How could Catherine be so cruel to a girl who was clearly trying so hard? Amy, how much do you make a month? Mr. Michael, you can tell me. I have the right to know how much I pay my employees. $800, sir, plus food and the room. Michael almost fell out of his chair. $800 a month for a maid who worked practically the entire day. And on top of that, Catherine wanted to deduct half because of a $200 vase. How many hours do you work a day, Amy? It depends, sir. Usually from 6 in the morning to 8 at night, but when there are visitors or a party, it can be later. That's 14 hours a day. I know it's a lot, sir, but I need the job. And time off? Do you get weekends off? Mrs. Catherine said that since I live here, I don't need time off, but I can go out for a few hours on Sunday afternoon to visit my mother. Michael was shocked. This was bordering on slavery. How had he let his home turn into a place like this? Amy, how long have you worked here? 3 months, sir. And before that? I worked at a house on the Upper East Side, but the family moved abroad and couldn't take me. How much did you make there? $1,200, sir, and I had Sundays off. Then why did you accept working here for less? Amy looked down, clearly embarrassed. Mrs. Catherine said that after a trial period the pay would be increased, and that you were good people, different from other employers. Michael felt a deep shame. Catherine had deceived the girl to get cheap labor. And this raise, when was it supposed to be discussed? She said we would talk after 6 months, but now, with the deduction for the vase, Amy didn't need to finish the sentence. Michael understood perfectly. With the constant deductions, she would probably never get a raise. At that moment, they heard Catherine's footsteps coming down the stairs. Amy immediately straightened up and went back to making the coffee, as if nothing had happened. Good morning, said Catherine, entering the kitchen in a pink silk robe. Amy, I want my coffee in the living room today, and did you already let her know she's working this weekend? Yes, ma'am, murmured Amy. Great. Oh, and you can start washing the clothes in my room. I want everything ironed and put away by the end of the afternoon. Yes, ma'am. Catherine took her cup of coffee and left the kitchen without even looking at her husband. Michael realized she was deliberately ignoring him because of the argument the night before. When they were alone again, Michael approached Amy. Don't worry about the pay deduction, he said quietly. I'll take care of it." "Mr. Michael, please don't do anything that might upset Mrs. Catherine," begged Amy. "I can't lose this job." "You won't lose your job, I promise." But even as he said it, Michael wasn't sure how he could keep that promise. Catherine controlled every aspect of running the household, and he had learned over the years not to interfere in these matters. Now, however, things were different. He had seen his wife's cruel side and could no longer pretend he didn't know. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. This helps us a lot, as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Over the following days, Michael began observing the interactions between Catherine and the household staff more closely. Besides Amy, there was also George, the gardener who came 3 times a week, and Betty, the cook who worked Monday through Friday. What he saw left him increasingly disturbed. Catherine treated everyone with a coldness that bordered on hostility. She never said please or thank you, only gave curt orders and expected them to be carried out immediately. If something didn't turn out exactly as she wanted, she would explode into shouts and threats. Michael witnessed an especially cruel scene on a Thursday afternoon. Betty had prepared a special dinner because they were expecting some friends, but Catherine tasted the sauce and declared it too salty. "This is inedible," she shouted, throwing the spoon forcefully into the sink. "How could you serve such garbage to our guests?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Catherine," said Betty, a woman in her early 50s who had worked for them for over 2 years. "I can make another sauce real quick." "Real quick?" Catherine let out a sarcastic laugh. "People will be arriving in 2 hours. Do you think there's time to make everything again?" "I'll manage, don't worry. It's not the first time that—" "Not the first time what?" interrupted Catherine, her eyes flashing. "That you ruined dinner." "No, Mom. I meant it's not the first time I've had little time, but I always find a way." "Always find a way?" Catherine approached Betty, invading her personal space. "Are you implying that I don't know how to organize my own household?" "Of course not, Mrs. Catherine. I would never—" "You know what?" interrupted Catherine again. "You'll make everything again, and out of your own pocket. I want you to buy all the ingredients again and remake this dinner from scratch." Betty paled. Michael knew she earned a modest salary and had 2 children to support. Buying ingredients for a dinner for 8 people would be a significant blow to her budget. "Mrs. Catherine, please," began Betty with a trembling voice. "No please about it," Catherine shouted. "You ruined it, you pay, and next time you'll think twice before being careless." Michael couldn't take it anymore. He entered the kitchen determined to intervene. "What's going on here?" he asked, pretending not to know anything. "Nothing much," said Catherine, trying to compose herself. "Just a little problem with dinner." "What kind of problem?" "The sauce turned out a bit salty," Betty explained quickly. "But I'll fix it right away." "Let me taste it," said Michael, taking a clean spoon and sampling the sauce. It was perfectly seasoned. "It's great, Betty. No need to change anything." Catherine shot him a furious look. "Michael, I just said it's too salty." "It's perfect to me," he insisted, looking directly at his wife, "and I'm sure our guests will love it." "You don't understand cooking," murmured Catherine, visibly irritated at being contradicted in front of Betty. "I understand enough to know this sauce is delicious," Michael replied calmly. "Betty, you can continue with dinner as planned. Everything is perfect." The cook looked from Michael to Catherine, clearly unsure how to react. It was evident she was used to taking orders only from Catherine. "Thank you, Mr. Michael," she said finally. Catherine stormed out of the kitchen, and Michael knew he had an ugly fight ahead. But he didn't regret it. He could no longer stand by and watch people be humiliated in his own home. The dinner proceeded without any problems. All the guests praised the food, especially the sauce that Catherine had deemed inedible. Michael made a point of calling Betty in front of everyone to receive congratulations personally, something that clearly moved her. After the guests left, the storm Michael had been expecting arrived. "How dare you humiliate me in front of Betty?" Catherine exploded as soon as they closed the bedroom door. "I didn't humiliate anyone. I just tasted the sauce and said it was good." "You contradicted me in front of an employee," she shouted. "Do you know what that means? It means now she won't respect my authority anymore." Maybe it's because your authority is based on humiliating people who can't defend themselves. Catherine was speechless at the frankness of the response. I can't believe you're saying this to me. I'm your wife. And that's exactly why I'm saying it, said Michael, surprised at his own courage. Because I care about you and don't want to see you turning into a cruel person. Cruel? Catherine let out a hysterical laugh. I'm cruel because I demand quality and discipline in my home. You're cruel because you humiliate people who depend on you to survive. People? Catherine's tone turned venomous. Those people are employees, Michael. They work for us. They're not our friends. That doesn't mean we should treat them as if they're inferior. But they are inferior, exploded Catherine. Socially, economically, educationally. If they weren't, they'd be in our position, not theirs. Michael looked at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. How had he never noticed this side of her? Catherine, you're talking about human beings. People with feelings, families, dreams. Feelings? She laughed bitterly. Do you think they lie awake at night thinking about our feelings when they do a poor job? It's not a question of reciprocity, Catherine. It's a question of basic human decency. Basic human decency? Catherine stepped closer to him, her eyes blazing with anger. Do you know what basic human decency is, Michael? It's my husband supporting me instead of humiliating me in front of the help. I support you when you're right, but I won't condone cruelty. Cruelty? Catherine was almost shouting now. You want to know what real cruelty is? It's finding out that my own husband prefers the side of the help over mine. It's not a matter of choosing sides, Catherine. It's a matter of being on the right side. The right side? She let out a bitter laugh. And who decides which is the right side? You? Conscience decides, Catherine, and mine won't let me stay quiet anymore about what's happening in this house. Catherine stared at him for a long moment, and Michael could see her mind working quickly. You know what? She said finally, with a cold smile. If you like them so much, maybe you should go live with them. I'm sure you'd be much happier in a slum than here with me. Don't be dramatic, Catherine. Dramatic, she laughed. You haven't seen anything yet. If you keep questioning every decision I make, I'll make everyone's life so unbearable that they'll quit themselves, and then you'll see what it's like to be without help. You wouldn't do that. Don't challenge me, said Catherine, with a coldness that made Michael shiver, because you'll lose. And with those words, she locked herself in the bathroom, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts. For the first time in 15 years of marriage, he wondered who the woman he had married really was. The next morning, Michael woke to the sound of shouting from the kitchen. He rushed down and found Catherine screaming at Amy, who was holding a tray with the shards of a cup. You incompetent fool, she was yelling. Not only did you break my vase, now you broke my favorite cup. It was an accident, Mrs. Catherine, said Amy with tears in her eyes. The tray slipped from my hands. Slipped? Catherine let out a cruel laugh. Or did you let it slip on purpose to irritate me? I would never do that, Ma'am. Never? Catherine approached Amy, invading her personal space. So you're admitting you're just incompetent then? Michael immediately realized this wasn't an ordinary accident. Catherine was creating situations to humiliate Amy, fulfilling her threat to make the employees' lives unbearable. Catherine, he called, trying to keep his voice calm. Don't interfere, she shouted, without even looking at her husband. Now you, she said, turning back to Amy, will pay for this cup too. And since you seem to enjoy breaking things so much, you'll work the rest of the week for free. That's too much, Catherine, interfered Michael, unable to contain himself any longer. Too much? Catherine turned to him with a malicious smile. I haven't even started. Amy, besides working for free, you will also clean the entire house from the basement to the attic. I want everything shining. Catherine, stop this, said Michael firmly. Why should I stop? She retorted. This girl is clearly doing it on purpose. Yesterday it was the vase, today it's the cup. What will it be tomorrow? You know very well these are accidents. Do I? Catherine crossed her arms. And how do I know that? Because she said so, because you think so. Michael looked at Amy, who was visibly trembling. The girl was clearly terrified at the possibility of losing her job. Amy," he said softly. "You may go to your room. We'll talk later." "She's not going anywhere," shouted Catherine. "She will stay here and listen to the new house rules." "What new rules?" "Starting today," announced Catherine, clearly pleased with herself, "any employee who breaks something will pay double its value, and if they break more than one thing in the same month, they will be fired on the spot." "Have you lost your mind?" said Michael, incredulous. "Lost it?" Catherine laughed. "On the contrary, I've regained my sanity. I'm tired of being nice to people who don't deserve it." Amy began to cry more intensely, and that was the last straw for Michael. "Amy, go to your room now," he ordered. "And don't worry about these crazy rules." "Crazy?" Catherine turned purple with rage. "How dare you call me crazy? Because that's exactly what you're being. Oh, is that so?" Catherine's eyes shone dangerously. "Then you'll see who's crazy. Amy!" The girl, who was almost out of the kitchen, stopped and turned around. "You're fired!" shouted Catherine. "I want you out of my house today." "No!" shouted Michael. "You can't fire anyone without talking to me." "Yes, I can," retorted Catherine. "I run this house and my decisions are final." Amy broke down in tears and Michael felt his heart breaking. How had things come to this? "Catherine, please," he begged. "Let's talk calmly. There's no need to make drastic decisions." "Drastic?" She laughed hysterically. "The drastic decision was you choosing the side of the employees against your own wife. Now face the consequences." "Please, Mrs. Catherine," murmured Amy between sobs. "I need this job. My mother is sick and—" "Your mother is not my problem," Catherine cut in cruelly. "You should have thought of that before you kept breaking my things." "Enough," exploded Michael, surprising even himself with the volume of his own voice. "Enough, Catherine. You've gone too far." "I've gone too far?" She turned to him with an expression of fury he had never seen before. "You're the one going too far defending a little maid against your own wife." "A little maid?" Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're talking about a human being, Catherine. A 22-year-old girl who supports her sick mother." "So what?" shouted Catherine. "The world is full of poor people with problems. That's no excuse for being incompetent." Michael looked at his wife and didn't recognize anything of the woman he had fallen in love with 15 years ago. Where was the caring, dreamy young woman who had promised to be by his side through joy and sorrow? "Amy," he said, turning to the young employee. "You're not fired. You can rest easy." "How dare you?" Catherine was beside herself. "How dare you undo a decision of mine? Because this is my house too, and I have the right to have a say about who works here." "Your house?" Catherine laughed bitterly. "Your house? Who chose the decor? Who supervised the renovation? Who manages the staff?" "I did. This is my house and here we do what I say." "You're wrong, Catherine. We built this house together." "We?" She pointed a finger at her own chest. "I built this house while you were too busy with your business to care, and now you come wanting to give your opinion?" "I always cared, Catherine. I just didn't know you were turning into a person I don't recognize." "Turning?" She let out a hysterical laugh. "I've always been like this, Michael. You chose not to see. Or did you think I would stay forever being the naive young girl you met?" Catherine's words hit Michael like a punch in the stomach. Was it possible that she had always been like this and he simply hadn't noticed? "That doesn't justify the cruelty," he said, still trying to process the revelation. "Cruelty?" Catherine laughed again. "You want to see real cruelty? Just wait until tomorrow." And with those threatening words, she stomped out of the kitchen, leaving Michael and Amy alone. The girl was leaning against the wall, crying silently. "Amy," said Michael softly, "are you all right?" I don't know what to do, Mr. Michael," she sobbed. "I can't lose this job, but I also can't keep being treated like this." "You won't lose your job," he assured her. "I will fix this." "How?" she asked, raising her red eyes. "Mrs. Catherine hates us, and now she hates us even more because of our conversation." "Our conversation? I know it was because of me that you fought," said Amy, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "She keeps saying you never cared about the employees until I showed up." Michael felt a chill in his stomach. Catherine was manipulating the situation to make it seem like the problem was Amy's arrival. That's not true, Amy. The problem isn't you. The problem is how my wife treats people. But now she's even worse, insisted Amy. Yesterday, she made Betty redo lunch 3 times because she said the food was bland. This morning, she forced George to mow the lawn twice because she thought it was uneven. She's doing this on purpose, murmured Michael, more to himself than to Amy. On purpose? To provoke me, he explained. She wants me to give up defending them. Then maybe it really is better, said Amy sadly. At least that way she'll go back to treating everyone like before. What was it like before, Amy? The girl hesitated, clearly reluctant to speak ill of Catherine. It wasn't easy, she finally admitted. But it wasn't like this either. She was always demanding and grumpy, but she was never so cruel. Amy nodded. It seems like she's angry at the whole world, and she's taking it out on us. Michael realized he needed to take drastic action. He could no longer just react to Catherine's provocations. He needed to be proactive. Amy, do you trust me? Of course, Mr. Michael. Then I want you to do exactly what I say, okay? Okay. First thing, you're not fired. If my wife says anything, you tell her I said you should stay. But what if she insists? She won't insist after I talk to her. Second thing, from now on, any problem she creates, you come tell me immediately. Doesn't matter if I'm working, in a meeting, sleeping. You tell me everything, understood? Understood, sir. And third thing, your salary will be increased to $1,500 starting now. Amy's eyes widened. Mr. Michael, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, just accept it. And about the deductions my wife wants to make, forget it. There won't be any deductions. But Mrs. Catherine, leave Catherine to me, said Michael with a determination that surprised even himself. Now go rest a bit. You look tired. Thank you, Mr. Michael, said Amy, and for the first time in days, Michael saw a genuine smile on her face. You don't know how much this means to me and my mother. When Amy left the kitchen, Michael was alone with his thoughts. He knew he had declared war on Catherine, and she wouldn't accept defeat easily. But he couldn't turn back now. He had discovered something about himself in those last few days. He could no longer go along with cruelty, even if it meant confronting his own wife. The rest of the day passed in tense silence. Catherine didn't say a single word to Michael, and he noticed she was plotting something. He knew that expression on her face, that cold smile that appeared when she was planning some revenge. That evening during dinner, Catherine finally broke the silence. I spoke with my lawyer today, she said casually, cutting her fish fillet with precise movements. Oh, really? Michael tried to sound uninterested, but felt his stomach tighten. Yes. I wanted to know about some financial matters. What kind of financial matters? Catherine gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. About how asset division works in case of, let's say, changes in the marriage dynamic. Michael stopped eating and stared at her. Catherine, what are you implying? I'm not implying anything, she said, keeping her tone casual. Just informing myself about my rights. Your rights regarding what? This house, the businesses, the bank accounts. She made a dramatic pause. Everything we built together during these 15 years. Are you threatening me? Threatening? Catherine laughed. Why would I threaten you? We're a happy couple, aren't we? Catherine, be clear. What do you mean? I mean that maybe you should think twice before making certain decisions, she said, finally dropping the act. Because some decisions can have very serious financial consequences. Are you talking about divorce? I'm talking about reality, Michael. The reality that you have much more to lose than I do in a potential separation. Michael felt as if he'd been slapped. Catherine was using money as a weapon to force him to accept her abuses. Do you think I care more about money than my conscience? I think you care about your lifestyle, she replied coldly. About your businesses, your properties, your social reputation, all of which you'd lose if I decided I no longer want to be married to a man who humiliates me publicly. Humiliate? Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. Who's humiliating whom here? You humiliated me yesterday in front of Betty, today in front of Amy. How many more times do you intend to humiliate me? Stopping you from being cruel isn't humiliation, Catherine. To me it is, and to my lawyer too. What lawyer? Attorney Williams, divorce specialist. He said I have a very strong case against you. Case for what? Emotional abandonment, public humiliation, sabotage of marital authority. She listed coldly. Many things that could guarantee me a very large slice of your assets. Michael stared at her for a long moment, trying to process what was happening. The woman he had been married to for 15 years was blackmailing him with divorce threats so she could continue mistreating the employees. Catherine, he said finally, with a calm he didn't feel. You've completely lost touch with reality. Have I? She laughed. I think you're the one who's lost sight of priorities. Forgotten that I'm your wife, not these employees you're so worried about. You are my wife, but that doesn't give you the right to be cruel to other people. It gives me the right to run my house as I see fit. Our house, Catherine, and our responsibility to treat well the people who work for us. Responsibility? She stood up abruptly from the table. You want to know what my responsibility is? It's to my marriage, to my husband, not to some little maid who showed up here 3 months ago. Some little maid? Michael also stood up. Catherine, you're talking about a girl who works 14 hours a day to support her sick mother. I'm talking about a stranger who's destroying my marriage. Your marriage is being destroyed by your own cruelty. My cruelty? Catherine let out a hysterical laugh. My cruelty is demanding quality in my work, is holding people accountable, is wanting my house to run properly. Your cruelty is humiliating people who can't defend themselves. People? Catherine's tone turned venomous. What people, Michael? Do these people you defend so much care about you? Do they think you're being nice? Or do they just see an opportunity to take advantage of your naivety? You're delusional, Catherine. Am I? She approached him with a cruel smile. Let's do a test then. How about giving a house as a gift to your protégé? Let's see if she's really as honest as you think. What are you talking about? Offer a house to Amy, a real house in her name. Let's see if she refuses or if she accepts right away. Why would I do that? To prove your point, said Catherine with false innocence. If she's really a saint like you think, she'll refuse. If she's an opportunist, she'll accept. That's ridiculous. Is it? Catherine crossed her arms. Or are you afraid to find out that I'm right? Michael stared at her for a moment. There was something in Catherine's tone that bothered him, as if she knew something he didn't. All right, he said finally. I'll do it. You will? Catherine seemed genuinely surprised. I will. And when you see you're wrong about Amy, you'll stop all this paranoia. And if I'm right? Asked Catherine with a malicious smile. If she accepts the house right away, what will you do? It won't happen. But what if it does? Michael hesitated. He couldn't imagine Amy being opportunistic, but Catherine's conviction made him uneasy. If it happens, he said slowly, I will reconsider my position. Great, said Catherine, and Michael could swear he saw a glint of victory in her eyes. Then let's do this. Tomorrow you offer a house to your protégé, and we'll see who knows human nature better. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, Michael woke up with a heaviness in his stomach. The conversation from the previous night had left him unsettled, and he couldn't stop thinking about Catherine's confident expression when she accepted the challenge. There was something she knew that he didn't. He found Amy in the kitchen, as always, preparing breakfast. She looked more rested, and Michael noticed that the raise had lifted a huge weight off her shoulders. Good morning, Amy, he greeted her. Good morning, Mr. Michael, she replied with a genuine smile. The coffee is ready. Thank you. Amy, could you sit for a moment? I want to talk to you. The girl looked slightly worried, but she obeyed. Did something happen, sir? No, nothing bad. Actually, I want to make you an offer. An offer? Michael took a deep breath. He still thought this was foolish, but he had promised Catherine he would give it a try. I want to buy a house for you and your mother." Amy was speechless. "What?" "A small house, but comfortable, in a good area with access to public transportation and hospitals, in your names." The girl kept looking at him as if she didn't understand the words. "Mr. Michael, I don't understand. It's simple. I want you and your mother to have a place of your own to live, away from the boarding houses, away from the hardships, a place where you can live with dignity." But why?" stammered Amy. "Because you deserve it. Because you work hard and you're a good person. And because I can afford to do it." Amy was silent for a long moment, clearly trying to process the offer. Michael watched every expression on her face, looking for signs of greed or opportunism, but all he saw was confusion and disbelief. "Mr. Michael," she said finally with tears in her eyes, "that is very generous of you, but I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because I haven't done anything to deserve this. I've only worked here for 3 months. I'm not your relative. I'm not an old friend. I'm just your housekeeper." "Just," repeated Michael. "Amy, you work 14 hours a day. You take care of your sick mother. You've never complained about the difficult conditions you found here. That's not just anything." "But that's my duty," she insisted. "You pay me to work, I work. It's as simple as that." "And if I insist on the offer?" Amy stared at him with a serious expression Michael had never seen before. "If you insist, I will still have to refuse, and I will have to think about looking for another job." "Why?" "Because accepting would be dishonest. You're having problems with Mrs. Catherine because of me. If I accept a house as a gift now, I'll be taking advantage of the situation. And that's not right." Michael felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Amy had not only refused the offer, but had shown a much more mature understanding of the situation than he had expected. "Amy, do you realize what is happening between me and my wife?" "Yes, sir, I do, and I feel very bad about it. Mrs. Catherine is not wrong when she says the problems started after I arrived. She said that to you?" "Yesterday, after the argument in the kitchen, she came to me and said that—" Amy hesitated. "Said what?" "That you had never cared about the staff before, that I was causing problems in your marriage, and that if I truly cared about the family's well-being, I should leave." Michael clenched his fists. Catherine was manipulating Amy, making her feel guilty for a situation she hadn't created. "Amy, look at me," he said firmly. "My wife is wrong. The problems in our marriage didn't start with you. They just came to the surface because of you. I don't understand the difference. The difference is that the problems were already there. I just didn't want to see them. Your arrival just opened my eyes to things I had been ignoring for years." "Even so," insisted Amy, "I can't accept your offer. It wouldn't be right." Michael watched her for a moment, feeling a mix of admiration and shame. Admiration for Amy's integrity and shame for having doubted her, even if briefly. "May I ask a personal question, Amy?" "Of course." "What is your biggest dream?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "My biggest dream?" "Yes. If you could choose any life for you and your mother, what would it be like?" Amy grew thoughtful for a moment. I think I'd like to study. I've always wanted to get a nursing degree, and I'd like my mother to be able to retire and take care of her health without worrying about money." "What about owning a home? Is that not part of those dreams?" "It is," she admitted, "but a home I earned with my own work. A home I can look at and say, I achieved this on my own." Michael felt his eyes fill with tears. How could he have doubted that girl's integrity? "Amy, forgive me for making that offer." "Forgive you?" She seemed confused. "And why would you apologize for being generous?" "Because it wasn't generosity, it was a test." "A test?" "My wife convinced me that you might be a gold digger, that you were taking advantage of my goodwill. So she challenged me to offer you a house to see what your reaction would be." Amy's face paled. "Did Mrs. Catherine know you were going to make that offer?" "She did. In fact, it was her idea. And if I had accepted. According to her, it would prove you're opportunistic." Amy fell silent for a long moment, clearly processing the information. "I see," she said finally, with a sadness that broke Michael's heart. "Amy, I'm sorry. I should never have doubted you." "You have nothing to apologize for," she said, but her voice was heavy with hurt. "Mrs. Catherine is right. It's better if I look for another job anyway." "No!" exclaimed Michael. "Amy, please don't leave because of this. I made a terrible mistake, but now I know who you really are." "And who am I, Mr. Michael?" "An honest, hard-working person of integrity, a person I should have defended from day one without doubts or stupid tests." Amy looked down, clearly moved. "It's hard to work in a place where your honesty is constantly being questioned." "I know, and I promise that won't happen again. Catherine was wrong about you, and I will make that very clear to her. It's no use, Mr. Michael. She doesn't like me and she never will, and as long as I'm here, you two will keep fighting." "Amy, our fights aren't because of you. They're because of the values I abandoned over the years. You just reminded me of who I used to be." "What do you mean?" Michael sighed deeply. "When I was young, Amy, I had nothing. I grew up in a poor family, worked hard to get what I have today. Along the way, I think I forgot where I came from. I forgot how important it is to treat people with dignity, regardless of their social standing. You never treated me poorly. But I also never stood up for you before. I let my wife mistreat you for 3 months without doing anything. That is also a form of cruelty. You didn't know. I should have known. It's my house, my responsibility. I can't use ignorance as an excuse." Amy looked at him with a new expression, as if seeing him in a different light. "Did you really grow up in a poor family?" "I did. My father was a bricklayer. My mother took in laundry. We lived in a 2-room house in the Bronx." "In the Bronx?" Amy's eyes widened. "But that's where my mother and I live." "Really? On what street?" "Maple Street, number 847. Michael turned pale. "That's not possible." "Why?" "I lived on Maple Street, number 234. They stared at each other for a moment, both processing the coincidence. "What's your mother's name, Amy?" "Dorothy Wilson." "Why?" Michael felt his legs go weak. "Mrs. Dorothy, did she have very curly hair? Did she always wear a flowered apron?" "She did," said Amy slowly, "before she got sick." "But how did you—" "I knew your mother, Amy, over 20 years ago." "How?" Michael sat down heavily in a chair, feeling as if the world had turned upside down. "When I was 15, my father had an accident at the construction site. He couldn't work for 3 months. We had no money for anything, not even for food. My mother was desperate, not knowing what to do." "And my mother?" "Your mother showed up at our door one Sunday morning. She said she had heard about our situation and brought 2 bags of food. Rice, beans, pasta, oil, sugar, everything we needed to get by for at least 2 weeks. Amy brought her hand to her mouth, clearly shocked. "She never told me that." "When my father asked how much we owed her, your mother said we owed nothing, that it was just one neighbor helping another, and she kept bringing food to us for the 3 months my father was out of work." "My God," murmured Amy. "The day my father went back to work, we went to thank your mother. She just said, 'One day you'll help someone in need, and so the circle continues.' I never forgot those words. Mr. Michael, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything. Now I understand why I felt so connected to you from the very first day. Your mother saved my family when I was a child, and now life has given me the chance to repay the favor." "But she's sick, sir. She has serious heart problems." "Which hospital is she getting treatment at?" "At the neighborhood clinic. We can't afford a private doctor." "That's going to change," said Michael with determination. "From today on, your mother will have the best medical treatment money can buy." "Mr. Michael, I can't accept." "You can and you will accept," he interrupted firmly. "It's not charity, Amy. It's gratitude. And it's justice." Amy began to cry, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she murmured. "Thank you for everything." "I'm the one who should thank you," said Michael, "for reminding me of who I really am, and for being the daughter of a woman who taught me the true meaning of generosity." At that moment, they heard Catherine's footsteps coming down the stairs. Michael stood up, preparing for the confrontation he knew was coming. "Did she accept?" asked Catherine with a confident smile as soon as she entered the kitchen. "She refused," said Michael calmly. Catherine's smile faltered. "What do you mean, refused?" "Exactly that. She refused the house, refused any gift, and even said that if I insisted, she would look for another job." Catherine looked from Michael to Amy, clearly trying to process the information. "She's lying," she said finally. "She's playing hard to get something better. No, Catherine, she's being honest, as she always has been." "Honest?" Catherine laughed, but there was no humor in her voice. "Michael, you're more naive than I thought. She refused because she knows you'll be impressed and offer something better. You're wrong, Catherine, completely wrong." "Am I?" She approached Amy with a cruel smile. "Then tell me one thing, Amy. If my husband offered you 10 houses instead of 1, would you refuse that too?" "I would refuse," replied Amy without hesitation. "And if he offered an apartment in Greenwich Village?" "I would also refuse." "And if he gave you money to go to college?" Amy hesitated for a fraction of a second, and Catherine immediately noticed. "Ah!" she exclaimed triumphantly. "Now we're getting to what really matters, aren't we?" "Catherine, stop this," said Michael. "I won't stop," she retorted. "I'm finally finding out what this girl really wants." "She doesn't want anything," Michael exploded. "She hesitated because studying is her dream, not because she wants to take advantage of me." "How do you know what her dream is?" asked Catherine with a sly smile. "You're having very intimate conversations for an employer and employee, don't you think? What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking, how does a married man know the intimate dreams of a 22-year-old maid?" "Because I asked," shouted Michael, losing his patience. "Because I care about the people who work for us." "You care?" Catherine let out a hysterical laugh. "Michael, you're in love with this girl." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael looked at Catherine as if she had completely lost her sanity. "Have you gone mad, Catherine?" "Gone mad?" She laughed louder. "I've finally regained my sanity. Now I understand why you defend her so much. Why you question every decision I make, why you raised her salary without consulting me." "Catherine, you're delusional." "Am I?" She turned to Amy. "And you, girl, what do you have to say about this?" Amy was visibly shaken. "I never did anything inappropriate, Mrs. Catherine. I would never disrespect your marriage." "Of course not," said Catherine sarcastically. "You're the little saint who doesn't accept gifts, aren't you? But I bet you welcome my husband's attention with open arms." "Enough!" roared Michael. "Enough, Catherine. You've crossed every line." "Have I?" She turned to him with fiery eyes. "I've crossed the line? You're the one behaving like a lovesick teenager." "You're sick, Catherine. You need help." "Sick?" She laughed hysterically. "The only sickness I have is a husband who prefers a little maid to his own wife." "I don't prefer anyone. I just demand that you treat people with respect." "Respect?" Catherine pointed at Amy. "This girl is destroying our marriage and you want me to respect her. Our marriage is being destroyed by your paranoia and cruelty." "Cruelty?" Catherine's eyes gleamed dangerously. "You want to see real cruelty?" And before Michael could react, Catherine went to the drawer where she kept the house documents and took out an official paper. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, waving the paper in the air. "What is it?" "Your protégé's birth certificate," said Catherine with a triumphant smile. Michael was confused. "How did you get this?" "I asked my private investigator to look into her past. And do you know what he found?" "Catherine, you investigated Amy?" "Yes, I did. And I discovered some very interesting things." "What things?" Catherine approached Amy, who was pale as a sheet. "Tell him, dear," she said with false sweetness. "Tell my husband what your full name is." "Amy Wilson," murmured the girl. "Full name!" shouted Catherine. "Amy Wilson Johnson," said Amy almost inaudibly. Michael froze. "Johnson?" "That's right," said Catherine triumphantly. "Your protégé isn't just named Amy Wilson. Her name is Amy Wilson Johnson. And do you know why?" "Catherine, what are you talking about?" "Because," she said, savoring every word, "her father was named Robert Johnson. And Robert Johnson was your partner in your first company 20 years ago." Michael's world collapsed. Robert Johnson had been his partner and best friend at the beginning of his career. They had started a small construction company that had given rise to the entire empire Michael owned today. But Robert had disappeared from his life mysteriously, without explanation. "Robert Johnson is your father?" he asked Amy, his voice trembling. "He was," she corrected, with tears in her eyes. "He passed away when I was 10. "And you knew who I was when you came to work here?" "I knew," admitted Amy. "My father always talked about you. He said you were like brothers." "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because," Amy hesitated, fighting back tears. "Because my father also told me how you fought, how you accused him of theft and kicked him out of the company." Michael felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "He told you that?" "Yes, and he also told me he was innocent, that someone had forged his signature on the documents, but you wouldn't believe him." "My God," murmured Michael, remembering those terrible days 20 years ago. "Now are you starting to understand?" said Catherine, with cruel satisfaction. "Your protégée came to work here with ulterior motives. She wants revenge." "No," shouted Amy. "That's not true, isn't it?" retorted Catherine. "Then why didn't you reveal who you were from day one?" "Because I wanted to get to know Mr. Michael better before talking about my father," explained Amy between sobs. "I wanted to see if he was truly the bad person who ruined my family's life, or if there was some explanation for what happened." "And what was your conclusion?" asked Michael with a hoarse voice. "That my father was right," said Amy, looking directly into Michael's eyes. "You're not a bad person. Someone deceived you, made you believe my father was guilty, and my father spent the rest of his life trying to prove his innocence." "Amy," began Michael, but she interrupted him. "Do you want to know why I accepted working for such low pay? Why I never complained about the mistreatment? Because I wanted to understand what really happened 20 years ago. And now I understand." "What do you understand?" "That someone manipulated both of you. Someone who wanted to destroy your friendship and take over the company." "You're delusional," said Catherine nervously. "Your father was a thief, period." "My father was not a thief," shouted Amy, finally losing her composure. "He was an honest man who was betrayed by someone he trusted." "By whom?" asked Michael. "I don't know," admitted Amy, "but I'm certain it wasn't by himself. My father died trying to prove his innocence. He spent 10 years gathering documents, looking for evidence, trying to discover who had forged his signature. And did he discover anything? He was close to discovering when he passed. But he left a folder with all the documents he managed to collect." "What documents?" "Copies of contracts, bank statements, audit reports, everything he could find from that period." Michael and Catherine exchanged glances. He could see nervousness in his wife's eyes. "Where are these documents?" asked Catherine quickly. "With my mother," replied Amy. "She kept everything, hoping that one day the truth would come out." "Amy," said Michael, feeling a growing urgency, "I need to see those documents." "Why?" asked Catherine abruptly. "Why stir up things from the past?" "Because if George was innocent, I committed a terrible injustice," replied Michael, "and I need to make it right." "Make it right?" Catherine laughed nervously. "Michael, that was 20 years ago. It doesn't matter anymore." "It does," he said firmly. "George was my best friend. If I treated him unfairly, I need to make peace with that." "He's dead!" shouted Catherine. "You can't make peace with anyone anymore." "But I can make peace with his family," said Michael, looking at Amy. "With his daughter and his wife." "Michael, this is madness," insisted Catherine. "You're going to dig up things that are better left buried." "Why are you so nervous, Catherine?" asked Michael, beginning to suspect. "Nervous? I'm not nervous. I just think it's a waste of time. Or are you afraid of what I might discover?" "Afraid?" She laughed, but the laughter sounded forced. "Afraid of what?" Michael studied her for a moment. There was something about Catherine's behavior that wasn't right. She was too nervous for someone who had nothing to hide. "Catherine," he said slowly, 20 years ago, when the problems with Robert began, who first brought the suspicions to me? How should I remember something like that? Try to remember. Michael, that was 2 decades ago. She was clearly agitated now. It was you, he said, the memory gradually returning. You were the one who told me you had noticed discrepancies in the financial reports. So what? Anyone would have noticed. You were the one who suggested hiring an auditor to investigate. It was the logical thing to do. And you were the one who found the documents with Robert's forged signature on your desk. On his desk, corrected Catherine quickly. The documents were on his desk. No, said Michael, the memory becoming clearer and clearer. They were on my desk. You said you found them when you went to get some contracts I had asked for. Catherine paled. You're remembering wrong. Am I? Michael stepped closer to her. Or are you lying? How dare you accuse me of lying? Answer one question, Catherine. One simple question. What question? At the time of the audit, did you have access to the company documents? I was your girlfriend. Sometimes I helped with a few things. Did you have access to the stamp with my signature? Michael, where are you going with this? Answer. Did you have access to the stamp? I did, she admitted reluctantly, but only to help when you were busy. And did you know how to imitate Robert's signature? Why would I know that? Because you dated him before you were with me, said Michael, another memory surfacing. Robert told me you had been together for a few months. That doesn't mean anything. It means you knew his signature. It means you had reasons to want to destroy our friendship. And it means you had access to all the documents needed to forge the evidence. You're delusional, shouted Catherine, but her face was growing paler. Am I? Michael looked at Amy. You said your father was close to finding out who had framed him. Did he mention any names? He did, said Amy quietly. He suspected someone close to you, someone who would have had access to the documents and who benefited from his departure from the company. Who benefited from Robert's departure? Asked Michael, more to himself than to the other two. You, shouted Catherine desperately. You ended up with the whole company. No, said Michael slowly. I offered to split the company 50-50 with you when we got married. You became my official partner just 6 months after Robert left. That's a coincidence. Is it? Michael moved even closer to her. Or was it planned from the beginning? Michael, you're going crazy. Catherine was nearly hysterical now. You can't believe these fantasies. What fantasies? He turned to Amy. Where does your mother keep your father's documents? In a blue folder under her bed. Let's go get them now. No, shouted Catherine. You're not going anywhere. Why not? Because this will destroy our marriage. Our marriage is already destroyed, Catherine, by your cruelty, your lies, and now by the discovery that you may have ruined an entire family's life. I didn't ruin anything, she was crying now. I just protected our interests. Our interests? Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. Catherine, are you admitting that you forged the evidence? I didn't forge anything, she shouted. I just adjusted a few things. Adjusted how? Robert was stealing, Michael. He may not have left clear evidence, but I knew he was stealing, so I just created evidence for what I knew was true. You created false evidence against an innocent man? He wasn't innocent, insisted Catherine. He was too poor to be your partner. He would have dragged you down. Catherine, Robert grew up in the same poverty as I did. Exactly. She seemed to think she was winning the argument. You were both too poor. I came from a family with money, with connections. I could really help you grow. So you destroyed my friendship with him to become my partner. I saved your career, shouted Catherine. With Robert as your partner, you would never have left that small firm. With me, you became a millionaire, at the cost of an innocent family's life. Innocent? She laughed hysterically. They were poor, Michael. They would have stayed poor anyway. At least this way you had a chance to prosper. Michael looked at his wife and realized he was seeing a monster. How had he married someone like that? How had he lived 15 years beside a person capable of such cruelty? Amy, he said, turning to the young woman who was silently crying, forgive me. Please forgive me for believing her lies, for doubting your father, for ruining your family's life. You believe me. I do. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to repair the harm I've caused. "You will do no such thing," shouted Catherine. "If you try to incriminate me, I will tell everyone about your affair with this girl." "What affair?" asked Michael calmly. "Everyone will know you're in love with your ex-partner's daughter, that you're having an affair with a 22-year-old maid." "Go ahead," said Michael with a calm that surprised even himself. "Tell whoever you want. Because when I show the documents that prove you forged evidence to destroy an innocent family, everyone will know who you really are." "You don't have any documents." "Not yet," said Michael. "But I will. And you know it." Catherine stared at him for a long moment, and Michael could see her mind working frantically, searching for a way out. "Fine," she said finally, with a sudden calm that frightened him. "You want the truth? I'll tell you the truth. I'm listening. Yes, I forged the documents. Yes, I framed Robert. And yes, I did it so I could become your partner." "Why?" "Because I loved you," she shouted. "Because Robert was between us. Because he would have ended up destroying our relationship. Robert never interfered in our relationship." "Didn't interfere?" She laughed bitterly. "Michael, you spent more time with him than with me. You trusted him more than me. He was your best friend, your #1 priority. He was my partner." "He was your first love," shouted Catherine. "Not romantic, but he was, and I wasn't going to share you with anyone." Michael fell silent, trying to process the madness he was hearing. "So you destroyed an entire family's life out of jealousy?" "Destroyed?" Catherine laughed. "I saved our marriage and built an empire for us. Look around you, Michael. Look at everything we have. Do you think you would have achieved this with Robert as your partner? I would rather have half of this with a clear conscience." "Clear conscience?" she cackled. "A clear conscience doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't buy houses, cars, trips. It doesn't give you the respect you have today. Respect built on a lie is worthless." "Worthless?" Catherine stepped closer to him with a cruel smile. "Then give it all back. Give back the house, the cars, the businesses. Go live in a slum like your little friends and let's see how long your clear conscience lasts. If I have to, I will." "Will you?" she laughed. "Michael, you don't even have the courage to fire a maid. How will you find the courage to give up everything?" "I will because it's the right thing to do." "The right thing?" Catherine was becoming hysterical again. "The right thing would have been to thank me for saving your career. The right thing would have been to be a better husband. The right thing would have been to support me always, instead of questioning every decision I made. The right thing would have been to be honest from the start." "Honest?" she shouted. "You want honesty? Then be honest about why you're defending that girl so much. Be honest about your feelings for her." "My feelings for her are gratitude and respect. Gratitude because she opened my eyes to who you really are, and respect because she is the daughter of a man I dishonored unjustly." "Gratitude and respect?" Catherine laughed sarcastically. "Michael, you're in love with her. You may not admit it even to yourself, but you are." "Even if I were," said Michael calmly, "that wouldn't change the fact that you are a liar and a manipulator who destroyed the lives of innocent people." "Even if you were?" Catherine's eyes shone triumphantly. "Ah, so you admit there is something." "I admit that I discovered my wife is a cruel and dishonest person, and that I prefer the company of any decent person to yours." "Decent person?" Catherine pointed at Amy. "That girl came here with ulterior motives. She lied about who she was. She manipulated you to get what she wanted." "She didn't lie about anything important, and she didn't manipulate anyone." "No?" Catherine turned to Amy with a cruel smile. "Then tell me, dear, did you really come to work here by chance? Or did you specifically seek a job in the house of the man who destroyed your father?" Amy lowered her eyes, clearly embarrassed. I saw the ad in the newspaper and recognized the name." "Aha!" exclaimed Catherine triumphantly. "You saw it was him and came to apply." "I did," admitted Amy, "but not with ulterior motives. I came because I wanted to meet the man my father admired so much, even after everything that happened." "Admired?" asked Michael, surprised. "My father never spoke ill of you," explained Amy. "Even knowing he had been wronged, he always said you were a good person who had been deceived. He was sure that one day the truth would come out and you would be friends again." "You see," said Catherine sarcastically, Even dead, the man was still manipulating you. My father didn't manipulate anyone, shouted Amy, losing her patience. He was honest and hard-working, unlike some people. Some people? Catherine approached Amy threateningly. Are you calling me dishonest? If the shoe fit, how dare you? Catherine raised her hand as if to slap Amy. Enough, roared Michael, grabbing his wife's arm. Don't you lay a finger on her. Let go of my arm, shouted Catherine. I won't let go until you calm down. Calm down? She was beside herself now. My husband is holding me back to protect a maid. How do you expect me to calm down? I want you to stop acting like a madwoman. Madwoman? Catherine began to laugh hysterically. I'm the madwoman. You're the one destroying our marriage over a girl you've known for 3 months. Our marriage was destroyed by your lies. Lies? She stopped laughing abruptly. You want to know a lie? The lie is that you care about this family because of the past. The truth is that you're in love with that girl and you're using her father's story as an excuse. You're delusional. Am I? Catherine freed herself from Michael's arm and addressed Amy. And you, girl? Are you in love with my husband? Amy turned red. Answer, shouted Catherine. I respect Mr. Michael very much, said Amy in a low voice. Respect? Catherine laughed. Or love? Mrs. Catherine, please. Please what? Please stop asking things you don't want to answer. Catherine, stop this, said Michael. I won't stop. She turned to him. I want both of you to admit what's going on here. I want you to assume you're in love with each other. Even if we were, said Michael calmly, that wouldn't change the fact that you're a criminal. Criminal? Catherine turned pale. How dare you call me a criminal? Forging documents is a crime, Catherine. Fraud is a crime. Slander is a crime. You committed all these crimes to destroy an innocent family. I didn't commit any crime. I protected our interests. You committed very serious crimes, and you'll answer for them. Answer how? She laughed nervously. Are you going to report me? Your own wife? If necessary. Michael, you wouldn't do that to me. I would, and I will. Catherine stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to determine if he was bluffing. If you do that, she said slowly, I'll tell everyone you're having an affair with that girl. I'll destroy your reputation completely. Do it. I don't care. You don't care? She seemed genuinely surprised. Michael, you'll lose everything. Clients, friends, social respect. I'd rather lose all that than keep living with a criminal. A criminal, she shouted. I'm your wife. You were my wife. Now you're just a stranger living in my house. Your house? Catherine laughed bitterly. This house is mine too, and I'm not leaving. You don't have to leave. I'll leave. You'll leave? She seemed confused. Where to? To a hotel, until the legal situation is resolved. Legal situation. The divorce, Catherine, and the restitution of assets obtained through crimes. You can't do that. I can and I will. From now on, you have no power over anyone in this house. Michael, you're making a terrible mistake, said Catherine, changing tactics. You're destroying 15 years of marriage because of a girl you barely know. I'm correcting a 20-year mistake and protecting a family I should have protected from the beginning. A family? She looked from Michael to Amy. Oh, now I understand. You're going to start a family together, is that it? Catherine, stop talking nonsense. Nonsense, she laughed hysterically. Michael, you're leaving a 40-year-old woman for a 22-year-old girl. That's not nonsense. That's a midlife crisis. I'm not leaving you for anyone. I'm leaving you because of you. Because of me? Because of the cruel and dishonest person you've revealed yourself to be. Cruel and dishonest? Catherine was almost shouting now. I built all this for us. I sacrificed my youth, my dreams, my entire life for you. And now you call me cruel and dishonest. You built all this on lies and the suffering of innocent people. Innocent people? She pointed at Amy. That girl came here for revenge, to destroy our marriage, and she succeeded. She came to work and ended up showing me who you really are. Who I really am. Catherine laughed bitterly. I'm the woman who's loved you for 15 years, who fought to build everything you have, who supported you in everything. You're the woman who lied to me for 15 years, who destroyed my friendship with my best friend, who built our fortune on crimes. Crimes? She was crying now. Michael, I did everything for love of you, for love of our future. Love doesn't justify cruelty, Catherine. Love doesn't justify crimes. And what do you feel for that girl? She pointed at Amy. Is that love too? Michael looked at Amy, who was silent, clearly emotional about everything she was discovering. What I feel for Amy is respect, he said finally. Respect and gratitude, and the need to repair the harm I caused her family. Just that? Just that. Michael, said Amy softly. May I speak? Of course. I wanted to thank you for discovering the truth about my father. But I don't want you to destroy your life because of this. I'm not destroying anything, Amy. I'm finally fixing things. But Mrs. Catherine is right about one thing, said Amy, fighting back tears. I'm causing problems in your marriage, and that's not right. You're not causing any problems. Yes, I am, and that's why I think it's better if I leave. No, exclaimed Michael. Amy, you can't leave now. I need to make up for the harm I caused your father. You already have, she said with a sad smile. You discovered the truth, and that's all my father wanted. It's not enough. Yes, it is. My father used to say that the truth always comes out. And it did. Now I can tell my mother that he was cleared. Amy, you deserve compensation. I don't want compensation, she interrupted. I just want my father to rest in peace. And he can rest now because the truth has been discovered. But I'll be fine, Amy assured. I'll keep working. I'll take care of my mother. I'll pursue my dreams in my own way. It doesn't have to be like this. Yes, it does, she insisted, because this is how the right things are done. With dignity, with honesty, without taking advantage of others. Michael looked at her with growing admiration with every word. How could that girl be so wise and mature at 22? See, said Catherine, trying once more. She's leaving. Now we can get back to normal. There is no more normal, Catherine, said Michael calmly. After everything I've discovered, there's no going back. Michael, please. She was begging now. We can start over. I can change. I can be different. I don't believe you anymore, Catherine. I don't trust you anymore. And I can't live with someone I don't trust. But I love you. Love without trust doesn't exist. It's just obsession. Obsession? She laughed bitterly. Michael, we have 15 years of history together. 15 years of lies. Not everything was a lie. How can I know? If you lied about something as important as this, what else did you lie about? Catherine fell silent, clearly with no answer to that question. Michael, said Amy softly, I'm going to pack my things and leave. I don't want any more trouble. Amy, wait. At least let me help with your mother's treatment. Thank you, but you don't have to. You've already done so much. I haven't done anything yet. Yes, you have. You discovered the truth, and that's worth more than any money. Michael watched her walk toward the bedroom and felt as if he were losing something very precious. He didn't know exactly what it was, but he knew he didn't want to let Amy go. She's leaving, said Catherine with satisfaction. Now we can work out our problems. Our problems have no solution, Catherine. Yes, they do. We can do couples therapy, we can talk. Catherine, you destroyed a family. You lied to me for 15 years. You mistreated innocent people. There's no therapy that can fix that. So that's it? She started crying again. 15 years thrown away because of a maid? 15 years thrown away because of your lies. Michael, I love you. I truly love you. I know I made mistakes, but I can fix everything. Some mistakes can't be fixed, Catherine. All mistakes can be fixed. We can donate money to her family. Money doesn't erase the suffering you caused. Then what do you want? For me to kneel and beg for forgiveness? I want you to take responsibility for your actions, to acknowledge the harm you've done, to stop trying to justify the unjustifiable. I acknowledge, she shouted. I acknowledge that I made mistakes, that I hurt people, but it was all for love. Love doesn't hurt innocent people, Catherine. "And what do you feel for this girl?" she asked desperately. "If it's not love, why are you destroying our marriage for her?" Michael was silent for a moment, reflecting on the question. "I'm not destroying our marriage for her," he finally said. "I'm ending our marriage for me, because I discovered I can no longer live with a person capable of such cruelty." "Cruelty?" Catherine laughed through her tears. "Michael, you want to know what cruelty is? It's throwing away 15 years of marriage because of a maid. It's not because of a maid. It's because of the values I discovered we lost along the way." "Values?" She spat the word out like it was poison. "What values? You want to be poor again. You want to go back to being the boy who lived in a two-room house. If that's what it takes to regain my dignity, yes." "Dignity?" Catherine guffawed. "Michael, you lost your dignity the day you chose a 22-year-old maid over your 40-year-old wife. I lost my dignity the day I accepted your lies without question." "Lies?" She was getting hysterical again. "What lies? The lie that I love you? The lie that I built all of this for us? The lie that Robert was a thief? The lie that you are a decent person? The lie that our marriage was based on love and trust?" "It was based on love, she screamed. "I love you more than my own life. You love what I represent. The security, the money, the social status, but you don't truly love me." "How can you say that? Because someone who truly loves doesn't lie, doesn't manipulate, doesn't hurt innocent people to get what they want. And someone who truly loves doesn't abandon his wife because of a maid," she shot back. "I'm not abandoning you because of anyone. I'm walking away from you because of who you are." "Who I am?" Catherine laughed bitterly. "I am the woman who sacrificed everything for you, who gave up my dreams for yours, who built an empire by your side. You are the woman who built an empire on lies and the suffering of others." "So what?" she exploded. "So what if a few people suffered? The world is cruel, Michael. Either you're strong and survive, or you're weak and get destroyed. That's the difference between us, Catherine. You think cruelty is justifiable. I don't." "You don't?" She stepped closer to him with blazing eyes. "Then why are you being cruel to me? Why are you abandoning me after 15 years? Because sometimes being kind to a cruel person is being cruel to everyone else." "What other people?" "Amy, Betty, George, all the employees you mistreated, all the families that suffered because of your lies." "Families?" She laughed. "What families? You're talking about just one family. A family that you destroyed, a life that you ruined, a friendship that you ended. That is more than enough." "Michael, you're being dramatic. I'm being fair." Finally, at that moment, Amy appeared in the kitchen doorway carrying a small suitcase. "I've finished packing my things," she said softly. "Amy, don't leave like this," Michael pleaded. "At least let me drive you to your mother's." "That's not necessary, Mr. Michael. I'll take the bus." "Absolutely not. I'm driving you." "Mr. Michael." "No arguments, it's the least I can do." Catherine watched the exchange with a look of growing despair. "Are you leaving together?" she asked in a trembling voice. "I'm driving her to her mother's house," Michael replied calmly. "And then I'm going to a hotel. Tomorrow I'll find an attorney to start the divorce proceedings." "Michael, don't do this to me," Catherine begged. "Please don't abandon me like this." "I'm not abandoning you, Catherine. I'm freeing myself from you." "Freeing yourself?" She laughed hysterically. "Michael, you're going to regret this. You'll see you've made the biggest mistake of your life." "The biggest mistake of my life was not having believed Robert 20 years ago. And the second biggest will be leaving your wife for a maid." "I'm not leaving my wife for a maid. I'm leaving a liar for my conscience." And with those words, Michael picked up the car keys and followed Amy to the door, leaving Catherine alone in the kitchen with her tears and cries of despair. During the drive to Amy's house, they remained silent for a long time, each lost in their own thoughts about everything that had happened that morning. "Mr. Michael," said Amy finally, "are you sure you're doing the right thing?" "I am." "And you?" I don't know. I feel like I'm running away from my problems." "You're not running away. You're protecting yourself. And you're right to do so. But what about you? Will you be all right?" Michael looked at her through the rearview mirror, and felt a strange peace in his heart. I'll be all right. For the first time in 20 years, I'll truly be all right. Are you sure? I am. Because I've finally discovered who I really am, and I've discovered that I can no longer live pretending to be someone else. Who are you really? I'm the son of a bricklayer and a washerwoman. I'm the friend who should have trusted Robert. I'm the man who should have realized long ago that his wife isn't the person he thought she was. And now I'll try to fix what can be fixed, and I'll try to live according to the values my parents taught me. What values? Honesty, compassion, justice, respect for people, regardless of their social standing. Those are beautiful values. They're the only values that truly matter. When they reached Maple Street, Michael felt a wave of nostalgia. The neighborhood had changed a lot since his childhood, but he could still recognize some places. "It's here," said Amy, pointing to a small blue house. Michael stopped the car and looked at the house where Amy lived with her mother. It was simple, but well kept. He could see clean curtains in the windows and a small garden in the front. "Amy," he said, before she got out of the car, "I want you to know that if you ever need anything at all, you can come to me." "Thank you, Mr. Michael, but I won't need to." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I learned from my father that the most important person we can rely on is ourselves. And I learned from my mother that there's always an honest way to get what we need. Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "She is. Would you like to meet her?" Michael hesitated. Part of him very much wanted to meet the woman who had saved his family when he was a child, but another part was afraid to face the pain his actions had caused. Does she know who I am?" "She does. I told her the day I started working at your house." "And what did she say?" "She said things happen for a reason, and that maybe it was time for you two to meet again." "Do you think she would forgive me?" "Mr. Michael, my mother never held a grudge against you. She always said you were deceived, not that you were bad." Michael took a deep breath and got out of the car. If he was going to start a new life, based on honesty and courage, he needed to start by facing the past. The house was even smaller inside than it looked from the outside, but it was impeccably clean and organized. Michael could smell flowers and medicine mixed in a way that wasn't unpleasant. "Mother!" called Amy. "There's someone here who wants to meet you," a weak voice answered from the back room. "Who is it, dear?" "It's Mr. Michael." There was a silence, and then the sound of someone getting out of bed. "Michael?" The voice grew stronger. "Michael Anderson?" "Yes, ma'am." Good heavens. The woman who appeared in the bedroom doorway was visibly different from the Dorothy that Michael remembered from his childhood. She was thinner, more fragile, with graying hair and an air of weariness, but her eyes were the same, kind and warm. "Dorothy," said Michael, feeling his voice choke up. "Do you remember me?" "Of course I do, boy," she said with a smile that lit up her whole face. "I remember very well. You've grown into a handsome man." "Mom, Michael couldn't find the words. "Come here," said Dorothy, opening her arms. "Come give your Aunt Dorothy a hug." Michael approached her and hugged her gently, being careful not to hurt her. When she hugged him back, he felt like he was once again the 15-year-old boy who had experienced selfless kindness for the first time. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Dorothy," he murmured, fighting back tears. "I'm sorry for everything." "Sorry for what, boy?" "For not believing Robert, for destroying your family, for taking 20 years to discover the truth." Dorothy held him at arm's length to look into his eyes. "Michael, you were deceived. It wasn't your fault." "Yes, it was. I should have trusted Robert. He was my best friend." "And he remained so until the day he left," said Dorothy softly. "He never spoke ill of you, never held a grudge. He only wanted the truth to come out. And it took me 20 years to discover it." "You discovered it at the right time," she said wisely. "If you had discovered it earlier, maybe you wouldn't have been ready to accept it. Maybe you wouldn't have had the courage to do what's right. Do you forgive me?" "Forgive you for what, boy?" You never did me any harm. Yes, I did. Because of my actions, you went through hardships. Robert died trying to prove his innocence. Amy had to work since childhood to support the family. And today, we're better people because of all that, said Dorothy calmly. We learned to be strong, to trust each other, to value life's simple things. But you could have had an easier life. Easier doesn't mean better, Michael. Sometimes suffering teaches us things that ease never would. How can you be so generous? Because I learned that holding a grudge is like drinking poison, hoping the other person will die. It doesn't do anyone any good. Michael looked at her with admiration. How could this simple woman have so much wisdom? Mrs. Dorothy, I want to make up for the harm I caused. I want to help you somehow. You already have, boy. How? By discovering the truth, treating my daughter with respect, being the good man I always knew you were. But that's not enough. Yes, it is. It's more than enough. At least let me pay for your medical treatment. You don't need to, Michael. I'm being well taken care of. But the medicines are expensive. We manage. We always have. Mrs. Dorothy, please, let me do this. It's important to me. Dorothy studied him for a moment, and Michael could see she was choosing her words carefully. If it's important to you, she said finally, then I accept. But not for me, for you, so your conscience can be at peace. Thank you. But there's one condition. What? You won't give money to us. You'll pay the doctors and pharmacies directly. I don't want it to seem like we're taking advantage of your generosity. I agree. And one more thing. What else? You'll come visit us from time to time, not as Amy's boss, but as the boy Michael I watched grow up. You really want me to come here? Yes, I do. You're part of our family, whether you know it or not. Michael felt his eyes filling with tears again. Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy. Thank you for everything. We're the ones who should thank you, boy, for becoming the good man Robert always said you would become. Robert said that? Yes. He always said you had a good heart, but that sometimes the people around you didn't let it show. And that one day you would free yourself from those people and be truly happy. I think that day has come. It certainly has. And Robert must be smiling up in heaven, knowing that you've reconciled. Michael spent the rest of the afternoon talking with Dorothy and Amy, hearing stories about Robert and about the life they had built after he left the company. He discovered that Robert had tried to start another business, but never achieved the same success. He had worked as a construction worker, as Robert had dreamed of, improving the living conditions of construction workers. He wanted to create a cooperative, Dorothy shared, a place where construction workers could have better working conditions and fairer wages. Why didn't he succeed? He lacked the money to invest. And after what happened with you, no one wanted to do business with him. People thought he was dishonest. My God, Michael murmured. I ruined his reputation. It wasn't you. It was the person who lied to you. But the result was the same. It was. But now you can fix it. How? By telling everyone the truth. By clearing his name publicly. I'll do that. I'll make sure everyone knows Robert was innocent. Thank you, Michael. That will mean a lot to us. When the sun began to set, Michael realized he needed to leave. He still had a lot to resolve. The divorce, the restitution of assets, the reorganization of his life. I need to go, he said reluctantly. Where will you stay? Asked Dorothy. In a hotel, until I sort things out. Michael, said Amy softly, are you sure you want to get divorced? Perhaps Mrs. Catherine might change. Amy, some things can't be fixed, things can't be. And even if they could, I wouldn't be able to trust her anymore. I understand. And you? Will you be all right? We will, Dorothy assured. We always manage. Amy, are you going to look for another job? I am. I already have some references. If you need a recommendation letter, thank you, Mr. Michael, I might need one. And don't forget your dream of going to college. I won't forget. Maybe one day. Not maybe one day. Soon. I promise I'll find a way to help. You don't have to. Yes, I do. It's part of making amends. Michael said goodbye to the two women with a strange feeling in his chest. It was a mix of sadness for the lost time, relief for having discovered the truth, and something else he couldn't quite identify. On his way back to the city center, he stopped at a traffic light and looked at his own reflection in the rearview mirror. He saw a 45-year-old man, well-dressed, successful, but with tired eyes. The eyes of someone who had carried a burden for a long time and had finally been freed from it. He picked up his phone and called his lawyer. "Attorney Roberts, it's Michael Anderson. I need to see you early tomorrow. It's about a divorce and the restitution of unlawfully obtained assets." "Yes, it's a long story. See you tomorrow morning." Then he called his accountant. "Frank? Michael, I need you to prepare a full report of all our assets and investments. I'm going to have to return a significant portion, and yes, you heard right. I'll explain everything tomorrow." Lastly, he called his assistant. "Jennifer, I won't be in the office tomorrow. Cancel all appointments for the week." "Yes, the entire week. I have some personal matters to resolve." When he hung up, Michael felt lighter than he had in years. For the first time in 2 decades, he was making decisions based on his true values, not on convenience or fear. He drove to a hotel in the city center and checked in. The room was simple but comfortable, very different from the luxurious mansion he had left behind. But he felt more at home there than he had in his own house for years. He sat on the bed and picked up the phone to make another call. He hesitated for a moment, then dialed the number. "Amy, it's me, Michael. Is everything all right there?" "Great. Listen, I wanted to ask you a favor. Can you give me the exact address of your house? I want to send someone to pick up the documents your father left. No, it's not to harm anyone, it's to use as proof of his innocence. Tomorrow, thank you." After hanging up, Michael lay down on the bed and, for the first time in 20 years, slept with a clear conscience. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're listening from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Michael made the right decision? We'll be happy to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other exciting stories.